you believe the decision to jail Tommy Robinson was a political one?
Good morning, Julia. I certainly think he was railroaded into jail at Leeds. I'm not going to condone actually breaking a reporting restriction, but I think you said it was a kind of technicality that he got off on yesterday. I think it was a lot more than technicalities. The judge yesterday was pretty scathing about what happened in the Leeds court, which was unusual for a judge to criticise another court in the way that he did. And there were a number of points. Tommy had agreed to take the video down at the point. There was insufficient cause, really, to justify immediate proceedings. It should have been adjourned so the case could be properly considered. There were no particulars of the contempt which he was supposed to have formulated, so he couldn't actually say that he had or he hadn't. There was no clarity about what he admitted or didn't admit. He didn't plead guilty because there's no verdict for the contempt. There's no plea at a contempt hearing. And
through his barrister, he admitted. Through his barrister, he admitted the contempt. But you talk about no clarity. That actually, the judge yesterday also had criticisms of Tommy Robinson's legal team and himself at the time, because he was also aware they deliberately didn't want there to be clarity because they were going to use that technical flaw to then make their appeal.
I don't think he had much of a legal team at the time because it was all done within a few hours and he had whatever solicitor was available at the time. So he's hardly had a legal team defending him.
Well, he did have a legal team defending. He had
one solicitor, as far as I know.
Yeah, okay. But the trouble is with this, okay, look, there are many people who may have a lot of concerns about our justice system. And clearly he has won that aspect of his appeal. However, we know that it's very clear what the crime that he committed is a crime. It's not a civil offence, a contempt of court. But the way this is being played out in terms of the campaigns for Tommy Robinson, of course, his real name, I need to point out, is Stephen Yaxley Lennon. That's where he was sentenced under and served time under. But it's become something of a cause célèbre as almost a political prisoner. We see a petition, hundreds of thousands of people, this hashtag Free Tommy. We've seen a lot of very sort of far-right Republicans in the United States and Canada coming over and very much sort of supporting his cause. Tommy Robinson his first big interviews are going to be on far-right channels and the like. Are you concerned that this is whipping up to a certain level of hysteria where there could actually lead to trouble on the streets?
First of all, you use the term far right. That's used very freely now for anybody that isn't kind of to the left of Jeremy Corbyn. Anybody that has a contrary view to the accepted left-wing consensus is called far right.
Well, no, I don't use. Yeah, but I know a lot of people do, but I don't use that. I've chosen that term quite deliberately.
Okay, well, I might dispute that. We won't go into details on that. I think the reason that Tommy Robinson exists is precisely because things that he started to voice some years ago were swept under the carpet by the establishment, both political, the police, the social services. And that's why Tommy Robinson exists, because he is a genuine voice for certain sections of the population who feel that they're being ignored, and indeed that rampant criminality is being ignored. And it was because he had the courage to speak up for those people. And my support for Tommy is always qualified. I've always said that I support him not 100% because I don't agree with everything that he does or says. But precisely because he was speaking up for those people is why he's so popular today. I mean, he is rash and he's reckless, but if he wasn't, he wouldn't have the courage to do what he's actually done.
No, I mean, I share a number of your thoughts on that. I think we can all agree, there's no question at all, that the absolutely obscene crimes of what again people say Asian grooming, Muslim grooming gangs, mass paedophile gangs of rapists, that was swept under the carpet because there was a view by the police, the social services, and the courts that somehow it would be seen as racist or Islamophobic to bring actions against these people. And again, they were exposed by MPs, by individual social workers, individual police officers, and no action was taken. It took a very, very brave man, in fact, a Muslim prosecutor, to actually bring these crimes to. Now, I think that Tom Robinson's done great work there. I also think he's done great work in terms of exposing the threat of Islamic extremism in this country and the fact that actually a lot of these so-called moderate Islamic groups are actually being funded by Salafist groups and are actually incredibly dangerous and are pushing forward some very, very dangerous ideology. However, the fact that this is now being whipped out, it does feel like it's being whipped up as a sort of an anti-Muslim, generally a pro-white, a sort of, or it's got the feel, certainly with the support of some groups in America and Canada now, of a sort of it's got the feel of a white supremacist movement now. Does that not worry you?
Well, if you'd have actually turned out to one of the rallies, I've been to 3 or 4 of these now, you'll find people there of all different backgrounds. You'll find black people, you'll find Asian people. It's got nothing to do with white supremacy. I'm sure this is another mainstream media narrative that will be trotted out.
No, Gerard, please don't. I'm not mainstream media narrative at all. You know I'm not. I'm always plain speaking. But no, but the point is, I see the tweets from the people who support Tom Robinson, and a lot of them, I'm sure, are very, very, very good people who want the best for their country, and are genuinely scared and worried about the changes that are happening in this country, changes which I'm concerned about as well. But there are also some people who are frankly outright blatant racists.
Well, there always has been, and you've got people in the Labour Party now who are flagrant, outright anti-Semitic. There's always a minority of people, and I think I was just having this discussion with yesterday. In the Labour Party now, you thought all this thing is dead and buried, and then it becomes possible because of the Labour Party as being soft on this, in that these people come out of the woodwork again. So there'll always be a minority of people like that, but that doesn't mean the majority are wrong, because of what the minority might say. And of course, they're the ones that are always given the coverage and the airtime because they're saying something outrageous. But if you mingled with the people at a Tommy Robinson rally, you find that they're not actually like that. You'll get a few, certainly, you'll get a few drunken louds, but I'm afraid you get the same thing at a football match, but that doesn't mean that everyone who's at a football match is a bad person.
What is the key message that Tommy Robinson is attempting to deliver to the people of Britain? Because he's had his YouTube channel shut down, he's had his Twitter account shut down. There's no doubt at all that he is. There are, I think, absolutely clear attempts to close down his voice, but he's got a huge following, many millions of people, I think, who are very supportive of him. Maybe not in public, but in private. What do you think the message is that he wants the British establishment, the British media, the British politicians, that he wants them to hear that they are not hearing?
Well, I think, I can't speak for Tommy, but I think it might be similar to what I'm trying to do, maybe in a less flamboyant way, which is that we actually confront the dangers of fundamentalist extremist Islamic ideology in our countries, which is what's really threatening us now and going forward, because it's becoming more prevalent. And we have imported into our country a dark age Arabian ideology, which is now causing us severe problems and will cause Europe severe problems going forward. And the political establishment have to think about how they're going to tackle that. But the last thing they want to do is to admit that it actually exists.
But you're talking about Islamic extremism when you're talking about that ideology, not ordinary Muslim families living in Britain peacefully.
No, of course not, because I've always talked about the ideology, and you can look at anything I've said or anything I've written, and I always talk about the ideology. The problem is that they all belong to a belief system which contains these extremist teachings. Now, they may not adhere to them, and most of them don't, but the problem is it is part of their ideology.
Okay, I'm just on a different note, if I can, just finally, there is a lot of talk about UKIP going up in the polls. There's lots of Conservative voters in particular, and indeed Brexit voters who perhaps don't have any other party allegiance, move away from the Conservatives, angry about the Prime Minister's Chequers deal. There's been some talk of Nigel Farage coming back either to lead UKIP again or possibly form his own party. If Nigel Farage, if the Prime Minister doesn't deliver on Brexit in any meaningful way, as many voters, I think most voters now don't expect that she will, would you stand down to allow Nigel Farage to come back to lead UKIP if he was the best hope of getting Brexit delivered?
Right, let me just a couple of your points there. First of all, we don't just want Conservative voters. We want voters from across the board and members from across the board. And I'm very much trying to reach out to the kind of disaffected traditional Labour supporter just as much as a Tory supporter, because I think they've got an awful lot in common. In terms of Nigel Farage, Nigel could have run for the leadership in any of the past 3 leadership elections. He didn't want to. That's fair enough. That's his decision. He hasn't gone away because he's still the leader of the EFDD group, where the UKIP MEPs sit in the Parliament. He's in the front row of the Parliament there. At the end of my 1-year term, because, as you know, I did that uncontested so that I could sort the mess out in the party, I will make a decision on whether I run for a 4-year term or whether I don't. And that will be based on how successful I feel I've been and whether I want to do a 4-year term. And that decision will have absolutely nothing to do with who the other contenders are, if there is when the election comes. So if Nigel decided he wanted to walk away from domestic politics and UKIP in the UK, that's fair enough. He had the right to make that decision. But if he wants to come back, he'll have to do it the hard way, which is run for election and get the members to vote for him after mid-April next year.